On the last inspection of my 380 SL, I spotted something that I did not like and knew I needed to change it, and that's this little short radiator hose right here. This seems to never get replaced. I think people just don't think it's important, or they can't find the hose. But when you look at these, they get really squished down, and after a while they start to harden, and if that hose fails, you got a big problem. Of course, if I'm going to change the hose, I might as well change the thermostat. Do not know the history of the thermostat in this car. But I got working on this and I realized, hey, I better get the camera. This is not an easy job. There's a sequence you have to go through to get the thermostat housing out. You can probably get it out, but it's really hard to get it back in with this hose unless you follow a certain sequence. And when I was putting it back together, I realized, uh-oh, this really needs a video, because it's not as easy to install as it may first appear. So what I'm going to do is pull it back out, try to show you after the fact how I got it out, and then I'm going to show you how I got it back in, because you'll need this information should you decide to replace your thermostat and this short hose right here. So let's say you pull the bolts out. There's 3 bolts that hold that housing in, and you're going to just lift this out, right? And you go, well, I'll loosen up this clamp here. The clamp's loose, and you get this out of the way and you kind of pry up, and what's happening is you're hitting down here, and the thermostat sticks down into the lower part of the water pump housing. So if you pry up enough on this and force it out, you want to be careful not to damage the new one. See that? I'm just going to pry it up. Pry it up. Ah. Yeah. So you think, oh, gee, I can't get that out of there. Now, if you have the old thermostat, you don't care. You just force it out. So what you're going to have to do, even to get it out, is to loosen up this back clamp here. And I think most people don't do that because they can't get to it. And what I had to do to get to that back clamp is I had to take this warm-up regulator, pull these 2 bolts, and lift it up as high as I could, and tie it over here with a zip tie. Then I had to take the idle control valve. There's a strap that holds that on, and disconnect that and get this idle control valve out of the way. Now you can clearly get to this clamp and loosen it up. Make sure it's real loose. Now with that clamp loose, it will allow the hose to tilt. See that? And with the hose tilting, you can just pull the whole thing out. Now let's back up, and I'm going to show you the sequence on how to install this. Before I install this hose back on, I wanted to show you the difference. This is the original hose. You can see how it started to deform. We cut it for purposes of measuring and cutting this hose, so disregard that. But look at how thin that hose is. And when this hose fails, you can have catastrophic engine failure. So we're supplying a double reinforced heavy-duty hose, which is reinforced fiber on the outside and reinforced right down the center. So look at the difference between those 2 hoses. And the fit is correct, and we cut these to length here in our shop. So to install this, what you want to do is take and put the hose on first with the clamps loose, just like this. Make sure you put the clamps in a position where you can get to them to tighten them. And I'm going to push this hose on as far as I can. Then I'm going to take the thermostat and install it. Make sure this rubber gasket is fully seated all the way around. Make sure this surface is clean. We're going to drop the thermostat into position, just like that. Now this is the critical part right here. You're going to rock the housing in to the water pump and to the hose at the same time. By lifting up the hose, lifting up on the hose like this, and then pushing this forward and in like that, and then pushing the hose back and wiggling this down until it seats in place and lines up. All right, now it's a simple matter of reinstalling the bolts, the bracket, getting the vacuum lines plugged back in, dropping the regulator here and reconnecting it, and then of course reinstalling that idle speed control valve. So I decided to provide a kit which would give you new clamps, the hose, and a brand new thermostat for your 380 engine, either a 380 SL or W126 with a 3.8 liter engine. Okay, we dropped the warm-up regulator and tightened the two bolts right there, one there and one on the other side, and then we slipped that idle speed control valve back onto the hoses, and that's held on with a clamp. So we're going to slide that clamp on there. And get it lined up with that little shock mount and install the nut. And that kind of wraps up this job. So take a look at your 380. If the hose looks real bad and you have no idea when the thermostat has last been replaced, this is a job you should do.